The first time I saw Queen Aerolith, she was kneeling in fire. The battlefield of Threxia Prime burned beneath a shattered crimson sky, its twin moons fractured by orbital bombardment. The air tasted of iron and ash. Human dropships screamed overhead while the insectoid war beasts of the Zathari swarmed through trenches carved from living crystal. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was a combat engineer, Sergeant Elias Verne, 7th Colonial Legion, trained to repair broken mechs and jury-rig failing shield generators. I wasn't trained to charge into the center of an alien war zone because something inside me refused to let a stranger die. But that's exactly what I did. The Zathari had been humanity's enemy for 3 years. They were taller than us, built of segmented armor like chitin that shimmered in hues of violet and gold. Their language was a symphony of clicking harmonics. Their war queens ruled not through politics, but through psychic command. We had been told they were monsters. Then I saw her. She stood at the center of a ruined command dais, her elongated crown cracked, bioluminescent veins flickering erratically. Human artillery had struck her convoy. The shockwave tore through both sides. Soldiers from my unit lay scattered around me, and Zathari warriors twitched in the dirt. And there she was, surrounded by fire. Her guard had fallen. The massive royal warforms that once shielded her were nothing but smoking carcasses. A line of our assault walkers pivoted toward her position, their cannons glowing hot. Target locked, came the voice over my comm. I don't know why I ran. Maybe it was the way she tried to rise, even wounded. Maybe it was the sound she made, not a battle shriek, but something raw and desperate. Or maybe I was just tired of watching worlds burn. I sprinted across the shattered ground, ignoring the screaming in my earpiece. Verne, get back. A walker fired. I dove, slamming my portable shield emitter into the ground and cranking its output beyond safety limits. A dome of pale blue light flared into existence just as the plasma round struck. The impact knocked me flat, rattled my teeth, and nearly fried the generator. When the glare faded, she was staring at me. Her eyes were nothing like I expected. They weren't black and soulless. They were silver, liquid and luminous, reflecting the flames around us. Confusion flickered in them. I raised my hands slowly. I'm not here to kill you, I muttered, not that she could understand. Another artillery volley began charging in the distance. My shield wouldn't survive a second hit. I made the only decision I could. I grabbed her. Up close, she was taller than me even on her knees. Her exoskeleton was warm, almost feverish. She tensed at my touch, razor-edged limbs shifting instinctively toward my throat. Trust me, I said, dragging her toward the trench line. The second volley hit where we had been seconds before. Fire swallowed the dais. We tumbled into the trench as debris rained down. Her breathing was ragged. A crack ran down her thoracic armor, leaking faint violet light. I recognized structural fracture when I saw one. You're dying, I whispered. Her gaze sharpened. A pulse of something pressed against my mind, like static behind my eyes. Images flooded me. A throne grown from living crystal. Endless stars. A swarm kneeling in devotion. The weight of a crown. And then, loneliness. The psychic pressure receded. She swayed. You can understand me, can't you? I breathed. Another explosion shook the trench. The war was closing in again. There was only one way out. I half-carried, half-supported her through abandoned supply tunnels beneath the battlefield. Human and Zathari forces clashed above us, unaware that their war's central figure was being smuggled away by a low-ranking engineer. Every few minutes, she faltered. Each time, that strange psychic static brushed my thoughts, not hostile, just searching. Why? A voice echoed faintly in my mind. It wasn't spoken aloud. It was an impression shaped into meaning. Because killing you won't end this war, I replied, unsure if she'd receive it. Silence. Then, clear this time. Human, you defy your own swarm. I'm not part of a swarm, I muttered. I just don't like watching someone burn. We reached an emergency evac shuttle half buried under rubble. It belonged to our side. Unauthorized launch would mark me as a deserter, possibly a traitor. I looked at her, this alien monarch, enemy of my species, bleeding light onto the floor. I overrode the shuttle's lock. As we lifted off, anti-air fire streaked across the sky. I pushed the engines beyond regulation thresholds and aimed for the neutral asteroid belt orbiting Threxia Prime. Behind us, the battlefield became a distant inferno. The asteroid base I chose was long abandoned, an old mining outpost carved into hollow rock. Its life support flickered when I powered it up, complaining in outdated code. I laid her down in the med bay. Up close, her injuries were worse than I'd thought. The crack in her exoskeleton had reached internal nerve clusters. Without treatment, she would die within hours. I didn't know Zathri biology, but I knew structures. Her armor wasn't dead material. It pulsed faintly, grown rather than forged. I activated my field scanner, mapping stress lines and internal lattice patterns. She watched me the entire time. You saved your enemy, she projected. You're not my enemy right now, I replied, carefully applying a bonding resin used for mech plating. You're a patient. A flicker of something like amusement touched my mind. Your kind names me Aerolith. Queen Aerolith. I'm Elias. Elias, she repeated silently, testing the shape of it. Hours passed as I worked. I used micro-welders at low heat, careful not to damage living tissue beneath her armor. I adjusted atmospheric composition to better match Zathri homeworld conditions, higher argon content, warmer ambient temperature. Her breathing steadied. Finally, the glow leaking from her fractures dimmed to a healthy pulse. You will live, I said, leaning back in exhaustion. She rose slowly. When she stood at full height, she towered over me, regal, radiant even in the sterile light of the med bay. Her crown plates unfolded slightly, catching the light like a halo of crystalline blades. You have altered the path of empires, Elias, she said into my mind. My death would have fractured the Zathri swarm. Endless queens would rise in blood. Yeah, I sighed. That's what I was afraid of. She stepped closer. Her presence filled the room, not physically, but mentally. A vast consciousness coiled behind her eyes. You touched the mind of a queen and did not break, she observed. I've had worse headaches. A strange sensation rippled through her, a psychic equivalent of laughter. Then her tone shifted. Swarms claim strength. They claim territory. They claim mates. I stiffened. I didn't save you for, you misunderstand. She extended one slender, bladed limb, not in threat, but in declaration. By the oldest law of the Zathri, the one who saves the life of a reigning queen amidst battle claims bond right. My stomach dropped. Bond right. You have challenged fate and seized it. You stand as equal in the eyes of the swarm. Aerolith, I began carefully, I am not trying to become alien royalty. Her silver gaze intensified. You already have. 3 days later, the Zathri fleet found us. I expected weapons locked and boarding parties ready. Instead, they formed a silent perimeter around the asteroid base. Aerolith stood beside me in the docking bay as a massive living warship connected to our airlock. Its hull shimmered like an enormous shell. You could leave, she told me. And get shot down by your fleet? I asked. They will not fire upon their king. I'm not your king. She tilted her head slightly. Then why does your heart race not with fear, but with anticipation? I had no answer for that. The airlock opened. A delegation of towering Zathari entered, their armor darker, their crowns more subdued. They froze when they saw me standing at her side. A psychic murmur swept through them, like wind through metal leaves. Aerolith's presence surged outward. This human, she declared into every mind present, entered flame and death to preserve the continuity of the swarm. He repaired what was broken. He defied extinction. The pressure built until even I felt it vibrate in my bones. I claim him as Threxkai. The word echoed like a bell. I swallowed. Translation. She glanced at me.
King.
The delegation knelt. Not just physically, mentally. A wave of acknowledgement crashed through the chamber, nearly knocking me off my feet. I wasn't kneeling. I was standing at her side. The war did not end overnight. Human Command labeled me a traitor within hours of intercepting Zathari transmissions. My image flashed across military networks. Deserter. Collaborator. Enemy asset. Aerolith showed me the broadcasts without judgment. You grieve, she observed. They think I betrayed them. You chose preservation over annihilation. That's not how war works. She stepped closer, her presence warm now rather than overwhelming. Then change how it works, my king. It was insane. One engineer and one AlienQueen trying to rewrite the logic of two. Civilizations locked in bloodshed. But we began. Aerolith allowed me into her council chambers aboard the living flagship. I stood among towering Zathari generals who could have torn me apart. Instead, they listened. I explained human fear, how the hive mind psychic network of the Zathari terrified us, how expansion into contested systems sparked panic. Aerolith translated Zathari perspective, how humans appeared chaotic and violently individualistic, impossible to predict, dangerously inventive. They fear your unity, I said. And we fear your fragmentation, she replied. So we crafted something radical. Limited shared networks. Diplomatic corridors. Joint mining rights. It took months. Assassination attempts came from both sides. I survived one when a human strike team boarded the flagship. They hesitated when they saw me unarmed, standing before the queen rather than hiding behind her. Stand down, I told them. Some did. Some didn't. Aerolith did not retaliate with extermination. She listened to my counsel and offered ceasefire terms instead. Bit by bit, the fire cooled. The day the Treaty of Threxia was signed, I stood on neutral ground between human diplomats and Zathari emissaries. Aerolith's hand, clawed and radiant, rested lightly against my shoulder. You are uneasy, she noted. I'm an engineer, I said. I fix broken things. I don't rule empires. You fixed more than armor. When the final signatures were placed, a psychic wave rippled across nearby Zathari ships. Not domination, relief. For the first time in years, their swarm sang without war harmonics. Human news feeds called it miraculous. They called me controversial. They called her terrifying. But the battlefield of Threxia Prime remained silent. No more fire. That night, aboard her flagship, Aerolith led me to the highest chamber, a throne room grown from luminous crystal, overlooking endless stars. You still doubt, she said. I never wanted power. Nor did I. She removed her crown. The living crystal folded away from her head, dissolving into motes of light that drifted upward. Gasps echoed from attending Zathari. A queen does not remove her crown before another, she said softly. She placed it in my hands. It was warm. You entered flame not for conquest, but for compassion. Strength without mercy fractures the swarm. Mercy, without strength, invites extinction. Together, they endure. I looked at her, not as an alien monarch, not as a symbol, but as the wounded being I had dragged from fire. I didn't save you to own you, I said quietly. Her eyes softened. And I did not claim you as king to bind you. She stepped closer, lowering her head until our foreheads nearly touched. I claimed you because you stood beside me when no one else did. The chamber grew still. Slowly, deliberately, I lifted the crown and placed it back upon her. I'll stand beside you, I said, but not above and not below. A pulse of approval surged through the room. Aerolith smiled, not with lips, but with light shimmering across her armor. Then we rule as two. Years later, historians would call it the turning point. Children, human and Zathari alike, would study Holos of the burning battlefield and the engineer who ran toward the fire. They would debate whether it was bravery or madness. I know the truth. It was exhaustion. Exhaustion with war. With watching leaders die and soldiers follow. Saving her did not make me a conqueror. It made me responsible. And every night, when I stand beside Queen Aerolith, my equal, my partner, and look out at a sky no longer filled with bombardment, I remember the heat of that battlefield. I remember the moment our eyes met through smoke and ruin. And I'm grateful I chose to run toward the flames. Because in saving the AlienQueen from the burning battlefield, we saved far more than a throne. We saved a future.